それではお時間となりましたので、ただいまより特別国際シンポジウム、アフリカと日本の連携の進化に向けて、食料安全保障と持続可能なブルーエコノミーの推進を目指してを開催いたします。皆様ご多忙の中ご参加をいただき誠にありがとうございます。このシンポジウムは来月開催されます第9回アフリカ開発会議 TICAD9 を見据えて、当財団が開催しましたアフリカにおける持続可能な開発と国際連携に関する賢人会議の成果を踏まえ、食料安全保障および持続可能なブルーエコノミーの観点から日本・アフリカ連携の今後の展望について議論することを目指しております。なお、このシンポジウムは東京虎ノ門の当財団ビルにお客様をお招きするとともに YouTube でのライブストリーミング形式も組み合わせたハイブリッド形式で開催いたします。それでは開催に際しまして当財団理事長の須波敦よりご挨拶申し上げます。須波理事長、よろしくお願いします。
笹川平和財団の須波でございます。本日は特別国際シンポジウムアフリカと日本の連携の進化に向けて、食料安全保障と持続可能なブルーエコノミーの推進を目指してにご参加いただき誠にありがとうございます。シンポジウムの開会にあたり一言ご挨拶申し上げます。皆様ご存知の通り、人口増加と経済成長を続けるアフリカは社会変革や地政学的変動、さらには気候変動など複雑かつ多様な課題に直面しております。こうした中、陸域のみならず沿岸海洋の生態系を保全しつつ、持続可能な資源管理を通じて食料生産を向上させることは持続可能な社会構築における重要な政策課題となっております。このような課題への取り組みを支援し、アフリカと日本の連携をさらに進化させるため、私ども笹川平和財団は日本財団および笹川アフリカ財団と連携し、関係機関の幹部や有識者の皆様とともにアフリカが直面する現代的課題、とりわけ食料安全保障および持続可能な漁業・養殖業を中心とするブルーエコノミーの推進について検討を重ねてまいりました。農業生産の向上も視野に入れつつ、日本および国際社会との連携、政策支援のあり方について議論を深め、その成果としてアフリカの持続可能な開発の推進に向けて、日本アメリカパートナーシップの強化と東京国際アフリカ開発会議プロセスの実効性向上と題する政策提言を本日、私ども笹川陽平名誉会長らとともに、岩谷外務大臣にはお渡しをしてまいったところであります。またこれからお話をいただくアフリカ諸国の元首脳や地域機関の幹部経験者の皆様とは、昨日までアフリカ持続可能な開発と国際連携に関する賢人会議を開催し、食料安全保障の強化と持続可能なブルーエコノミーの推進を中心に議論を重ねてまいりました。その成果は声明文として取りまとめ、先ほどこちらも岩谷外務大臣に施行させていただいたところでございます。本日のシンポジウムでは、この賢人会議の成果を踏まえ、食料安全保障および持続可能なブルーエコノミーの推進と、そういった観点から日本とアフリカの今後の連携をいかに効果的に進めていくかについて、皆様と考えを共有することを目的としております。その上で来月横浜で開催される第9回アフリカ開発会議において、首脳級の皆様の間でより有意義な議論が行われるよう知見の共有を通じて後押しし、日本とアフリカ連携のさらなる強化につなげてまいりたいと考えております。本日はご多忙のところ、藤井久之外務副大臣にもご臨席を賜っております。TICAD が32年にわたって発展を告げてきた歩みを踏まえ、来月8月20日からの TICAD9 において 日アフリカ連携がより実りある交流となりますよう、ぜひとも首脳会議を牽引いただければと考えております。そして私どもの、本日外務大臣にご施行させていただいた提言や声明、そして本日の議論が日アフリカ連携の進化およびティカットプロセスの実効性の向上を目指して首脳会議の議論を行うにあたって有意義な、示唆となることを願っております。最後になりますが、本日のシンポジウム開催にご尽力をいただきましたすべての関係者の皆様に心より感謝申し上げるとともに、本日の議論が持続可能なブルーエコノミーの推進と食料安全保障の強化に向けた日アフリカ連携の強化を目指す、促す重要な議論の場となることを願い、開会の挨拶とさせていただきます。本日もどうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
以上、須波理事長よりご挨拶申し上げました。続きまして、来賓挨拶といたしまして、藤井久之外務副大臣にご挨拶をいただきたいと思います。藤井副大臣、どうぞ壇上にお上がりください。よろしくお願いいたします。
Good afternoon, bonjour, boa tarde. Habariza muchana. Asante sana. 笹川日本平和財団名誉会長、津波笹川平和財団理事長、アフリカの元元首閣下の皆様、ご列席の皆様、外務副大臣の藤井久之です。日アフリカパートナーシップ賢人会議、そして特別国際シンポジウムの開催、誠におめでとうございます。本日は日本政府を代表して挨拶を申し上げます。Mr. Sasakawa, Honorary Chairman of the Nippon Foundation, Dr. Tsunami, President of the Peace Foundation, Honorable former heads of states of Africa, distinguished guests. My name is Fujii Saiki, State Minister for Foreign Affairs of Japan. I'd like to extend my sincere congratulations on the holding of the eminent peace persons meeting on sustainable development and international cooperation in Africa and the special international symposium. Today, I'd like to make a few remarks on behalf of the government of Japan. 本年は TICAD9 が横浜で開催される日アフリカ関係にとって特別な年です。TICAD9 ではアフリカおよび国際社会が直面する諸課題について日本とアフリカの双方の繁栄につながるような革新的な課題解決策を共に作り上げる機会としたいと考えております。This is a special year for Japan-Africa relations at TICAD9 will be held in Yokohama. We would like to take this opportunity at TICAD9 to co-create innovative solutions for various challenges facing Africa and the international community that will lead to the prosperity of both Japan and Africa. 海洋をめぐっては水産資源の枯渇、海水温上昇、環境汚染などさまざまな課題が存在しております。海に囲まれた日本とアフリカはこれらの課題に対処しながら海洋の保全と持続可能な利用を通じて経済振興を進めるべく知見や経験を共有しながら連携を強化する関係にあります。Regarding the oceans, there are various challenges such as the depletion of fisheries resources, rising sea temperatures, and environmental pollution. Both surrounded by the sea, Japan and Africa can strengthen our cooperation by sharing knowledge and experience in order to address these issues and promote economic development through the conservation and sustainable use of the oceans. 本日のシンポジウムでは産業強化や 雇用創出民間セクターによる持続可能な成長、若者や女性の能力強化、人材育成、海洋の連結性強化などの観点で TICAD9 に向けて有益な成果が得られることを期待しております。今回のシンポジウムのような日本とアフリカのリーダーによる対話の機会が設けられることは、日本政府として大いに歓迎したいと思います。At today's symposium, I hope beneficial outcomes for TICAD9 will be achieved in terms of industrial enhancement and job creation, sustainable growth by the private sector, capacity building and human resource development of the youth and women, enhancement of maritime connectivity, and so on. The government of Japan would like to very much welcome the opportunities like this symposium for providing space for dialogues between the leaders of Japan and Africa. 本日は食料安全保障および持続可能なブルーエコノミーの推進に向けた実りある議論が行われることを記念し、私からの挨拶とさせていただきます。I'd like to conclude my remarks by expressing my hope that fruitful discussions will be held for the promotion of food security and sustainable blue economies today. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Muito obrigado. Asante sana.
藤井外務副大臣、ありがとうございました。続きまして、本日ご参加いただいておりますアフリカ諸国の首脳経験者並びに地域間の幹部関係者を歓迎して、当財団名誉会長でもあられます笹川陽平日本財団名誉会長よりご挨拶申し上げます。笹川名誉会長、よろしくお願い申し上げます。
ようこそ皆さんお集まりをいただきまして、お暑い中本当にありがとうございます。アフリカに対して大きな期待をお持ちの方々ばかりがお集まりをいただいたことだと思います。ちょっと自己紹介しますと、私はもうアフリカ大陸には50年間突き刺さっておりまして、特にレプロシー、ハンセン病という病気を制圧するためにアフリカ諸国全体に薬の無料配布をし、今も現場に行っておりますが、まだ30カ国ぐらいしか私は回ってないんでございますけれども、現場には問題点と答えがあるというのが私の基本的な考えでございまして、常に現場に出るということが大切だと思っておりますが、その間これからまたブルーエコノミーの話も出てくるかと思いますけれども、もう50年にわたってアフリカの海洋に関する人材育成というのもしこしことやってまいりましたし、またこの小規模農家がアフリカには多いわけでございますけれども、この小規模農家の人たちを指導する農業普及員というのは、大卒の人たちを今までに約1万2000人養成をしてまいりました。そういうことを通じまして、アフリカの方々が持っているこの生活向上への意欲、あるいは情熱というようなものは素晴らしいものが実は存在するわけでございまして、遠く日本にいますと分かりにくいことではございますが、彼らはそういうチャンスをどのようにして生かしたらいいかということについて若干知識が足らない点はございますけども、ご指導を申し上げればきちっとそれを成果に結びつけるだけの情熱をお持ちの方々ばかりでございます。この大きく言えばアフリカのインフラをどうするかとはなんとか大きな話はございますけども、 それも国家レベルでは重要な話ではありますが、もっとアフリカ諸国の庶民に密着したところで我々が協力する大きな可能性があるわけでございます。今回、ナイジェリアのオバサンジョ元大統領を中心に賢者の皆さん方にお集まりをいただきまして、2日間箱根で議論をさせていただきました。それほど難しい話ではございませんが、本当に本音の議論を聞かせていただきました。大いに参考になりましたし、この後賢者の皆さん方遠くからですねお越しをいただいて、日本とアフリカの関係をさらにより良い関係を作っていこうということでお越しいただいて、率直なお話が多分出てくるだろうと思いますが、笹川平和財団では単に形式的なですね会議をやるということではなくて、やはりこれから継続的にアフリカの賢者の皆さんを日本にお招きして毎年やはりしっかりとした議論をし反省をし、また未来に向かってどうするかということを継続的にやっていこうということで、私たちの基本的な考えは現場には問題点と答えがある、しかもネバーギブアップの精神でやっていくということで、1回2回の会議の結論を持ってアフリカの関係を構築しようと思ってもそれは無理な話でございまして、私たちはそういう基本的なしっかりした考えのもとにこれからも継続してアフリカとの関係を構築していきたいと願っておりますが、そのためには今日お集まりのお越しいただいたアフリカの賢者の皆さん方のお話を率直に承り、そしてその中で我々日本としてできること、特に日本政府というより日本人として何が協力できるかということが大切なことでございまして、多少の距離はございますが、今や大変便利な時代にもなりましたし、どうぞ一つアフリカは遠いところではございません。素晴らしい人たちがたくさんいらっしゃいます。なんとかそういう結びつきを日本とアフリカ諸国との間に構築をしていこうというのが笹川平和財団の基本的な考えでございますので、もちろん国家レベルでの関係ということも重要でございますけれども、要は国民と国民との間の信頼関係が構築できるように、また彼らに私たちが持っているノウハウをどのように提供できるかということは、それほど難しい話ではないことは多分後ほど賢者の皆さんからお話があると思いますが、例えばブルーエコノミーにいたしましても、魚の養殖を始めたいとか、これは別に海岸だけではなくて内陸のビクトリア湖などでも養殖はすでに始まっております。ましてや私たち日本人の好きな海藻の養殖というようなことも始めていらっしゃるわけでございますので、こういうようなことは決してそんなお金がかかる話でもございません。特に私は日本人のいいところは、西洋社会を批判するわけではございませんが、教育してあげる、指導してあげる、管理をしてあげるという上からの目線ではありません。かつてアフリカは多くの国が植民地でございましたから、 そういう名残があって、上から指導する、教育するということではなくて、日本人の持っている心というのは、どこの国との間でも同じレベルになって、同じ立場になって、一緒に働いて、一緒に汗をかいて、喜びを分かち合うと、そういう日本人の民族性はですね、これはアフリカの方々に大いに歓迎される、私は日本人の特徴だと思っております。どうぞ一つ今日の賢者の皆さんのお話を聞いていただいて、何も大きな組織で、あるいは莫大なお金を持ってという必要は全くありません。多くの皆さん方が日本人のそういう共に働く、共に汗をかいて共に喜ぶ、その精神を彼らが待っているということをご理解いただきたいと思います。アフリカからお越しいただいた賢者の皆さん、2日間にわたる本当に率直なお話をお聞かせいただきましたけれども、ぜひとも今日ご来場の皆様方、あるいはその他あれで遠隔でご覧になっている皆様方に、皆様方のお話をぜひ頂戴したいと思います。ありがとうございました。
笹川名誉会長、ありがとうございました。So now we would like to welcome our honorable excellencies, eminent persons, along with our senior research fellow, Masanori Kobayashi, to the stage. Please come up to the stage. それではここからはアフリカ諸国の元元首並びに地域機関の幹部経験者によるパネルディスカッションに移りたいと思います。ここからの進行は当財団の小林正則上席研究員が務めます。それでは小林上席研究員、よろしくお願いいたします。
それではここからのセッションは私小林と申します、進行役を務めさせていただきます。まず先ほど須波理事長からもお話がありました賢人会議を今週3日間箱根の方で行ってまいりまして、そちらの方でたくさん議論があったんですけれども、その成果をですね非常に短いステートメントとしてまとめております。そちらのをちょっと紹介させていただいた上で、これから議論させていただきたいと思います。I first would like to congratulate and thank excellencies and the political leaders for giving us a very useful ideas about how we can really promote Africa-Japan partnership and enhance the effectiveness of this TCAT process. This text, we call it a statement, will be made available to the diplomatic community members here, and they are also made available on the internet. But first, briefly introduce text. So this reflects this 32 years history of the TCAT, and this TCAT started in 1993. And this August 9th TCAT will be held in Yokohama. Can you scroll? ゆっくりちょっと下の方に移動していただいてよろしいですか。This TCAT process is covering a wide range of issues, and these issues encompass human resource development, industrializations, human resource exchange and also technological cooperations. These discussions we had in Hakone had a focus on food securities and sustainable blue economy promotions. And in this context, they really underline the importance of the Japan-Africa partnership in forging social capacity for sustainable development. This text consists of 7 key recommendations. I hope you can go down. ナンバー1に行っていただいてよろしいですか。First, this is to say to mainstream food and nutrition security as a priority policy goals. This is the areas that is very important in the light of the continuously growing population and projected population growth in Africa. And food itself doesn't sound sufficient. It has to be accompanied the proper nutrition. So the stuffing the stomach is one thing, but providing nutrition is the other thing that's also important. And number 2, that is to reinforce holistic and integrated approach. We have to take into account not only fisheries, agriculture, but also climate change impact. For instance, disaster is one thing, a drought, water shortage is happening. On the other hand, there's a flood, hurricanes, rainstorms that are also devastating the local communities. And this climate change adaptations is another vital point. Number 3 is to give priorities to support fragile state, vulnerable communities, and small island developing states. There are 2 countries that are struggling with a number of constraints, and the small island developing states are also compounded by geographical and other conditions. So they have to be given to the priority in the partnership development. Number 4, to foster exchange of people, youth, and knowledge. And education is one of the key areas. And we have to ensure that this sustainability, livelihood improvement, and possibly blue economies has to become an integral part of education at all levels. This education and the capacity development is particularly important as Honorary Chair Yohei Sasuka mentioned, that the women is getting engaged and the disabled persons can be also integrated. Number 5 is to establish and operationalize Africa-Japan Blue Innovation Fund. This is to support the startup and entrepreneurship and also de-risk the investment in the blue economies areas. Investment in research and development is also vital. And number 6 is to institutionalize multifaceted dialogues. Political leaders, eminent persons can meet regularly. At the same time, experts, stakeholders, public sector representatives, they should be also engaged in the institutionalized platform for continuous policy dialogue. Number 7, monitoring and evaluation of the partnership progress and activities. We have to measure what we have achieved and what we still need to achieve. And this kind of monitoring process would be essential to revisit our strategies and enhance effectiveness. And with these key pillars of recommendations, the eminent persons gathering here have made a request to the Sasakawa Peace Foundations, Nippon Foundations, and Sasakawa Africa Associations to give us the opportunity to present this statement along with our recommendations to the Japanese authority and Dr. Tsunami and Honorary Chair Sasakawa, and also President Suzuki presented this statement to Foreign Minister Iwaya just 2 hours ago. So you see the list of the members who are sitting in front of us from very right for you, the Dr. and His Excellency Ibrahim Hassan Mayaki, the former Prime Minister of the Republic of Niger and the African Union Special Envoy for Food Systems. And next to him, His Excellency Dr. Mrisho Kikwete, former President of the United Republic of Tanzania and the Chair of the Board of the Global Partnership for Education, GPE. And next to him, His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, former President of the Federal Republic of Niger and the UN Special Envoy to the Great Lake Region and African Union High Representative to the Horn of Africa. Next to him, His Excellency Jorge Carlos Fonseca, former President of the Republic of Cabo Verde and the founder of the JCPF, Freedom and Democracy Initiatives. And next to him, Dr. Donaldo Caberuca, former President of the African Development Bank and African Union High Representative for Financing the Union, the Peace Fund, and the COVID-19 response, and the former Minister of Finance and Economic Planning of the Republic of Rwanda. And last but not least, Dr. Geraldine Fraser Moraketti, former Minister of Public Services and Administration, and the former Minister of Welfare and Population Development of the Republic of South Africa, and currently serving as the Chancellor of the Nelson Mandela University and the Chairperson of the Thabo Mbeki Foundations. So first, on behalf of the eminent persons, I would like to invite His Excellency Obasanjo to briefly tell us about overview, to be followed by the Dr. Fraser Moraketti to present a viewpoint, particularly from the gender perspectives. So Excellency Obasanjo, may I invite you to take the floor.
Kobayashi, thank you very much. Let me begin by thanking the Nippon Foundation, the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, and the Sasakawa Africa Association for coming together to bring the 6 of us on this side of the table, of the house, to deliberate with the Sasakawa leaders, foundation leaders, in preparation for the TICAD 9 on how to enhance the process that began 32 years ago, TICAD, how to enhance it and forge a sustainable future towards enhancing food security and nutrition security, and promoting sustainable blue economy. How to really ensure that Africa is not kept behind in all aspects of human endeavor, but to be able to continue to make meaningful contribution all by itself, and particularly to the international community to which it belongs. And when we look at Africa, we see that on our part, as Africans, we have a role to play. In fact, we have the primary role to play. But we also realize that, yes, if you are in a well, you need a help. You need somebody to throw a rope to you to help you get out of the well or out of the pit. And if you are in a pit and somebody is just saying, come out of the pit without sending a helping hand, it is of no use. And that is why we appreciate the role that Japan has been playing since the inception of TICAD 32 years ago. This time around, in preparation for TICAD 9, and that the three related organizations have brought us together, we had 2 days of intensive discussion, deliberation, heart-to-heart exchanges in Akuni. The first thing that I will underline is that our discussions are free, candid, and frank, and they really come from the heart. I think we put diplomacy a little bit apart, but we put decency in front and the way we see things. And this is on both sides. We realize that, yes, Africa needs assistance, but we are not totally, completely without something to give to the world if we are also able to get ourselves up with the assistance of the world. And the first thing we say to ourselves is we must be the architect of our own fortune. And in being the architect of our own fortune, we take responsibility first for where we must go. Let us not forget where we are coming from, but history is history. And as somebody said to me, history doesn't go back, it goes forward. But then we have to go forward, no matter what history has been. But history has not been fair to us. Let's leave that for now. What do we do? And as I said, you have seen what statement we come up with. But I want to emphasize about 4 or 5 points in this statement and what we believe we should either talk a little bit more about in this symposium or emphasize and take away. And in that case, let me first of all welcome all of you who are here, friends from Japan, and brothers and sisters from Africa. And I believe that the purpose that we want to really have of this, or the outcome of this symposium, is what we can share together and what we can take away and pass on. On one side, to the Japanese government, as this statement has been given to the foreign minister, and on the other side, to African leaders who will be coming for the TICAD next month. But let me emphasize the 4 or 5 points I want to emphasize. The first one is food and nutrition security. We believe that Africa has capacity not only to feed itself, but also to be a major contributor to food production and food availability in the world. And we say to ourselves, when we talk of food and nutrition security, what really are we talking about? We are talking about availability. And what do we need for availability? We need land, we need people to work on the land, and we have them both. So how do we put land and people together to get what we need in terms of availability of food? We need a few resources. Are those resources available? Can they be made available? And how can they be made available? And when we talk of food, we now talk of not just food in terms of agriculture. We talk of food and the value addition in terms of agribusiness, from land preparation and equipment for land preparation up to food on the table is value chain. And it is important that we take all these together. And then when we have the availability of food and nutrition that goes with it, must be not just to fill the stomach, but to fill the stomach in the proportion that the body requires. And so we talk of availability, then accessibility. Accessibility physically, accessibility regionally, accessibility in terms of what we need, even in balanced diet. And then we talk of affordability. If the food is available, or nationally or regionally, is it available to the home households? And if it's available to households or communities, is it affordable? Can they afford it? So we have, if we take care of availability, and we even take care of accessibility, have we been able to take care of affordability? Which brings me to another point, that if we are doing well in accessibility, affordability, availability, accessibility, affordability will also come in, because those who are producing food, who are working, will be generating fund and wealth for themselves to be able to afford the food. So talking of availability, accessibility, affordability, and then sustainability, then we are also talking of poverty alleviation, and we are talking of employment generation. Now, we move, for me, I move, and part of course, we talk of agribusiness, and this time we are paying necessary attention to blue economy. Blue economy for food, but blue economy not also for tourism attraction, blue economy for transportation as a means of using the coastal availability of Africa to do more of movement of goods and services around our coast, particularly for island countries and coastal countries. And the next thing is health. Now, with the situation we have now, we have seen in the last decade or so what we could see that we never expected will happen. One was Ebola, and as we were getting out of Ebola, we had COVID-19. Before that, of course, we have always had malaria. We are hoping that we will have one day be able to get over malaria. I know that a few countries in Africa depend to the point of 30–40% of their health budget on aid, assistance from outside. Now that is drying up. What then do we do to have global fund to deal with health situation? And we take this very seriously. Another point is education. We talk about education in terms of exchange, in terms of quality of education, in terms of science and technology, in terms of research. But then we must not leave out popular education. 244 million children of Africa that should be in school are out of school. That is 10% of the population. And my own country, Nigeria, has 24 million children that should be in school that are not in school. That is not acceptable. How do we deal with that and solve that? And when money or assistance on education is drying up, I also underline value addition in our agribusiness, agricultural production. And I believe value addition, or we believe value addition is the way to start our industrialization and manufacturing. By adding value, we start processing, we start industrialization. Then infrastructure, and the last point I emphasize is the issue of intra-African trade and Africa and world trade. Intra-African trade is very, very small, 18%, whereas in Europe, they're doing more than 60%. in Asia more than 40%, 18%, we can do a lot more. And if we have thriving coastal shipping, we will be able to increase our intra-African trade by at least 10%. These are the points that we emphasize in our discussions leading to the statement that we have put forward that you saw on the screen. But more importantly is two things that I want to emphasize. One is the monitoring, making sure that we know what is going on and where there's need to ginger and to raise attention to whatever is not going as should be going, that is made available and made possible through the assistance of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, Sasakawa Africa Association, and the Nippon Foundation. Now, that is very important, that we don't just make a statement and leave it. There is a follow-up in one form or the other. The second point before I hang the microphone is the issue of what do we do with this statement and how do we handle it. As you heard, the statement has been handed over to the ministry, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So, as a statement is already in the hand of the government, thank you, the hand of the government of Japan. And it will obviously be one of the input for the government of Japan as they prepare for the TICAD 9. The second aspect is that this statement must also go to our leaders, incumbent leaders in Africa, so that they can use it to prepare for their own coming and also to see what they can make of this statement individually and collectively as they come to TICAD. These are the points, and you, the ambassadors from Africa here, we will expect you to do what you know best how to, reporting back home, as you should report back home. Dispatches being sent out appropriately and adequately so that our leaders at home get the sense, the urgency, and the interest that should be fostered through this. I will stop at this point, and I will say that those of us here on the table, if you want to ask questions, but we will want you to also make point or give a statement. But if you want to ask questions from people at the table, you will be free to do so after my sister has heard the floor. Geraldine.
Thank you, Excellency Obasanjo's. I guess a number of points are raised. Just to say that this statement copy will be made available to you in the printing and also electronically afterwards. Excuse us that we had to clarify the versions, but it's being photocopied and made available to you. I guess we discussed a number of points, but yes, without further ado, invite Dr. Geraldine Fraser Morochetti to supplement Excellency Obasanjo.
Thank you and good afternoon. And I'd like to compliment what has been raised by President Obasanjo. And I'd particularly like to take you to the resolution that looks at the fostering of exchange of people, women, youth, and knowledge. You do have the statement before you and the recommendation, so I will add some color to it and advise that the larger debate was on the importance of education and the overall education agenda, and in so doing, also particularly looking at the investment in skills at different levels. That's low level, semi-skilled, and the high level. I particularly want to isolate the issue of women as well, because we know the role of women in the blue economy. The investment has really been at the lower tiers of the value chain, and there's a need to change that. But our focus is on women, youth, and the disabled. As we look at the issue of capacity building and capacity development, there's obviously a need to shape the research agenda with a clear focus on creating a new generation of African scientists and researchers to capacitate Africa to deliver the blue economy and food security and food nutrition projects for the sustainable development of the continent. We are not suggesting this is not happening, but we're looking at how the impact can be catalytic and coordination as such to take it to scale. In so doing, there's a need to look at some concrete areas, and this was also discussed during the meeting of the eminent persons. And that's the co-funding of research chairs in African universities, looking at the blue economy thematic areas in order to build research capacity as well as support postgraduate students. Then, of course, the need for a co-creation of a community of practice consisting of African and Japanese universities for knowledge generation and exchange, as well as lecturer or faculty and student development. And there was much debate on how there's a need to increase the numbers to make this happen. The catalytic research and the commitment to this will look at, amongst others, the advancement of food and nutrition security and food systems. I spoke about scholarship and fellowship programs being expanded, as well as looking at maritime spatial planning, biodiversity conservation, new system-based management, and so forth, as well as supporting capacity development at individual and institution level to boost research capacity, including support for regional centers of excellence. So broad discussions on taking that forward. And I hope in a second area, the whole issue of establishing and operationalizing the Africa-Japan Blue Innovation Fund with a clear focus of de-risking investment in the blue economy with a focus, as stated under Resolution 5, on supporting startups, entrepreneurship, and social business, but going well beyond that on technology, production, processing, surveillance, as well as the social inclusion, which was covered, and access to markets for fisheries and aquaculture products. I think I can pause on that, and hopefully there's further discussion. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Geraldine Fraser-Morochetti, for supplementary remarks, particularly on women's and also education issues. I have also brought some questions so far, and there's one question about how women are actually involved in the seaweed farming, and I recall the President Kikwete referring to the Tanzanian experience. Can you can I ask President Kikwete just to refer to this nexus between seaweed farming, coastal fisheries, and women's empowerment in your country?
Well, thank you. When we looked at the blue economy, because the blue economy looked at in relation to food security, we looked at fishing. And our discussion has been, one, it's a major employer. Well, there are so many people in those communities along the coastal areas of the seas, but also the coastal areas of the lakes. Many of these communities live on fishing. But one of the things we said is support to artisanal fishers. The majority of them are artisanal. They are artisanal in the sense that they use equipment that will not take them far into the deeper waters. For example, in the case of the coastline of Tanzania, the coastline of Zanzibar, our fishermen go not more beyond the 6 nautical miles. And these 6 nautical miles, we're talking of the shallow waters. And they have done a lot of fishing, overfishing, and the fish stocks are almost declining. They can't go beyond that because of the vessels they have, the traditional dugout canoes. But if we have to take these people out of poverty, if we have to increase their incomes, they need the technology that would enable them to go beyond the shallow waters, into the deeper waters, where the bigger fish, the more fish are available. If they can go into the deep seas, then that is where the tunas now are available and the bigger types of fish. We discussed that when we talk about developing the blue economy, when it comes to the seas, the artisanal of improving the performance of the artisanal fishermen is a critical factor that has to be taken into consideration. But the other aspect which is growing now is aquaculture, where now we have people in the lakes and along the seas who are now creating ponds to grow fish and sell so that they make money, they improve their livelihood. These people need skills so that they can do it better. And this is now done not only in the lakes, like in Tanzania, Lake Victoria is highly developed. This is increasing. But they're also doing it now at sea. Even within the seas, they create these ponds. They need fingerlings to grow them, become fish that they can sell and making income. But there is another aspect of aquaculture, seaweed farming. It is now highly developed. The world now is moving towards seafood and seaweed farming. Sea cucumber farming is another important industry in aquaculture. And in the case of Tanzania, this is predominantly the business that involves women. It is highly developed, relatively highly developed in Zanzibar, and it is growing along the coastline of mainland Tanzania, along the Indian Ocean. So it's another industry that also needs to be. But the women needs to be supported. They need to get the skills so that they can do it better. They use certain kind of ropes, they grow the seaweeds, they get the seaweeds from the sea, and then grow that, develop that into bigger product, get more. They need the technology, not only the skills, but they need the technology to do it better. But the other important aspect of it, they need the financing so that they can access the technology, they can access the resources to be able to develop that industry. On the African continent, poverty has a female face. Many people are poor, but women are hardest affected by poverty. So when they have this kind of an income-generating activity, if we can support women in the seaweed industry, in the sea cucumber industry, in the smallholder farming industry, we'll have made an important contribution towards helping alleviate poverty among the family. And when the women have better income, the family also is better, including their husbands also benefit from their wives or from their women becoming better resource endowed. So this is another aspect where we discussed at great length. We gave a lot of emphasis to it, and that is why the whole idea of Africa-Japan Blue Innovation Fund becomes a critical aspect to help. Of course, as President Obasanjo said, it is the responsibility of governments to try to create this environment, the conditions. But as he was saying, if you're in a pit, you need someone to throw a rope to be able to help you lift up. And if also we can create this fund to help African governments, to have African financial institutions to be able to help the seaweed farmers, the sea cucumber farmers, the aquaculture farmers, it will definitely help a lot in terms of alleviating poverty and at the end of the day, eliminating poverty. This is the addition that I can make. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency Kikwete. This coastal fisheries, aquaculture certainly help eradicating poverty, creating an income-generating opportunity, and empowering women. I see a hand of Excellency Fonseca, and he was referring to this small island developing states and sustainable blue economies. I presume that you have some supplementary remarks.
Can you repeat your question?
Small island developing states and sustainable blue economies, relation entre développement durable et économie bleue durable pour le pays d'île.
Je vais essayer de parler en français. Il y a une traduction en français qui n'est pas ma langue ni maternelle ni officielle, mais on va essayer de parler en français. Moi, je viens d'un pays, Cabo Verde, qui est un archipel. Nous sommes 10 îles. Nous sommes envers la mer. Et nous sommes un pays d'une petite surface, un peu plus que 3000 km², mais avec un grand océan devant nous. Je pense même que nous sommes plus... la mer représente plus de 80% du Cap-Vert. Et alors, nous sommes forcés, nous sommes obligés à penser et à développer et à approfondir une économie maritime, une économie bleue, comme on dit toujours. Toute la stratégie du Cap-Vert maintenant, c'est concentrée sur l'idée de la construction d'une économie bleue, d'une économie bleue liée à une économie verte, mais sur l'exploitation des ressources marines. Et je peux vous dire par exemple que depuis 2020 au Cap-Vert, on a créé une zone spéciale économique maritime à une des îles de Saint-Vicente. C'est un projet très ambitieux. C'est l'idée de créer chez nous une grande plateforme de commerce, logistique et maritime qui puisse lier l'Afrique, l'Europe et les Amériques. Ce projet est dans une phase d'exécution avec plusieurs phases. On avait déjà fait l'étude de base. On a déjà créé une autorité pour la zone spéciale économique maritime. Mais nous avons le problème du financement, de la concrétisation de ce grand projet. Oui. Et c'est un projet ouvert. C'est ouvert au financement, aux investissements. Et ça exige des ports, logistique des ports, aéroports, investigation des ressources maritimes, pêche, tout ça. Et je pense, en étant au Japon, nous avons une coopération très intéressante et efficace avec le Japon depuis notre indépendance. Nous avons 50 ans de relations diplomatiques avec le Japon. Et le Japon représente le partenaire le plus stratégique du Cap-Vert dans le domaine de la pêche. Et nous pensons que la tendance maintenant, nous pensons d'une coopération internationale avec le Japon d'une autre façon. Une coopération qui, par exemple, puisse surmonter l'étape de la pêche artisanale pour une pêche industrielle. Et je crois que le Japon peut nous aider et coopérer avec nous. Et aussi nous aider à concrétiser les phases de la construction de cette grande ambition d'une zone spéciale maritime économique au Cap-Vert qui puisse, par exemple, résoudre le problème du transport maritime en Afrique et lier des marchés africains pour américains et européens. Mais je veux terminer avec des observations, peut-être plus polémiques, que j'ai introduites dans ce débat. On a parlé de cette conférence et dans cette déclaration finale, la sécurité alimentaire et l'économie bleue. Et il y a une articulation entre les deux volets. l'économie bleue peut aider à garantir et approfondir la sécurité alimentaire et nutritionnelle. Mais avec mon expérience comme chef d'État, mais comme un agent politique depuis plus de 50 ans, depuis mes 18 ans, avec mon expérience aussi en Afrique, depuis l'Organisation de l'Unité africaine, en passant par l'Union africaine, et la CEDEAO, etc. Je crois que maintenant nous avons une confrontation de deux cercles. Nous avons un cercle, nous l'appelons un cercle virtueux, c'est-à-dire que la sécurité alimentaire et la paix. La paix rend possible l'accès à la nourriture. La sécurité alimentaire réduit les risques de conflits. C'est notre problème en Afrique. Et l'envers, le conflit aggrave la faim. La faim peut devenir un facteur déclencheur, un catalyseur de la violence, de la migration forcée. Il nous faut voir ce qui a passé en Égypte, en Cameroun, en Haïti, et aujourd'hui des menaces à la sécurité alimentaire au Sahel, en Haïti, en Ukraine, au Gaza maintenant. Et alors, il y a un cercle vicieux chez nous depuis des décennies. On dit toujours, nous faisons ce discours, nous les Africains, on n'a pas la paix, on n'a pas de développement pour qu'il n'y ait pas la paix ni la stabilité. Mais aussi, nous n'avons pas la stabilité et la paix pour qu'il n'y ait pas le développement. C'est un cercle vicieux. Il faut rompre ce cercle vicieux. Et nous comptons sur la coopération internationale, le Japon, la communauté internationale, mais il faut compter sur nos propres forces, nos propres décisions, nos options. Il faut choisir rationnellement, pas d'une façon émotionnelle, nos complicités en tant que bloc important, c'est l'Afrique, de façon à gagner la paix, la stabilité et être un bloc en parité, en dialoguant avec parité avec d'autres blocs mondiaux. Je crois que c'est ça notre rêve et je crois que c'est l'expérience de l'Afrique nous montre que c'est une illusion, une grave illusion, créer et penser qu'on peut arriver à la paix, à la stabilité, en érigeant constamment des régimes qui ne sont pas fondés dans l'idée de la création des sociétés des Africaines et des Africains libres. Je pense alors en démocratie. Merci.
Je vous remercie, Excellence Fonseca, pour votre remarque sur l'économie durable dans les petits États en développement. C'était très intéressant. I was given another questions to the Dr. Mayaki about this food supply system, and I guess for the seafood, this cold chain infrastructures, fish, seafood are very perishable, and that depends on the availability of this supply chain management. And I think it may be related to agricultural produce as well, but I just wonder if Dr. Mayaki can comment on this connectivity and blue food supply chain development challenges in Africa.
Thank you, Mr. Kobayashi. I'm not an expert in that question, so my response might be general, and I ask for, forgiveness, for tolerance. 3 points. Whatever we do in food systems, and this is why the term systems has been added to the term food has to be looked at in terms of interlinkages. And President Obasanjo and President Kikwete illustrated it very well. President Obasanjo referring to availability, accessibility, affordability, and President Kikwete highlighting in a very concrete and pragmatic way the value chain, especially in the blue economy. Now, let me go back to the issue of interlinkages. Why are we talking? Why is the expression food systems important? Because we cannot have availability, accessibility, and affordability if you do not have infrastructure, if you do not have transport, you do not have energy, and you do not have access to finance by small-scale farmers or by fishermen, and you do not have the necessary equipment that allows to manage cold chains or that allows to manage and reduce waste. So, and that type of thinking goes beyond ministries of agriculture, ministries of energy. It is interministerial. And being interministerial, it is a whole government approach. So this is why sometimes we think that interministerial committees can change and produce food system transformation. But when you see the leaders who are here, they have implemented hands-on processes of transformation. It's not interministerial committees who produce transformation. It's dedicated leadership with pragmatism. And when we talk about food systems, transformation comes by the management of these interlinkages. So it's all the policies that go together. The energy policy, the transport policy, the trade policy, the land policy, the inputs policy need to go together, and this is what makes the question of systems. Now, on the blue economy, just I had 1 point, 2 more points. There is an African blue economy strategy, as you know, and that Africa blue economy strategy, its implementation has a regional dimension, because we have regional blue economic commissions, SADC, ECOWAS, so I mean all the regions. So the aim of these regional commissions is to provide harmonization of the policies and to create a market, a regional market, because none of our country alone can really get out of, can solve the issue. And it was mentioned also by President Obasanjo and President Kikwete and President Fonseca. So the regional dimension is very important in addition to the question of the interlinkages, and the blue economy strategy has to be regionalized. Third point, and I will stop there, and it was equally mentioned, intra-Africa trade. Intra-Africa trade, and President Obasanjo mentioned coastal shipping. It's very important because Africa is an island, and it's a big island. There are small islands, but it's a big island. And as a big island, the trade is not only interland, the trade has to be facilitated all around the island. And this is why coastal shipping is important. And in addition to that, now responding to a question on which I'm not an expert, but trying to, cold chains are a question of infrastructure. And if you miss that link, then you are no longer in a system approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mayaki, for referring to this food system, regional approaches, and these coastal shipping issues. I'm getting a bit pressed by the time, and I just wanted to turn to Dr. Donaldo Kaberuka about these financing issues. I think we discussed about this blended finance, philanthropic finance to de-risk the new businesses or startups, and the African Regional Bank, Development Bank is very important to induce private sector investment. I just wondered if you can supplement this sequence of seed funding, philanthropic funding, Regional Development Bank funding, private sector investment in terms of promoting sustainable blue economies. We see this idea of Japan, Africa, Africa, Japan, Blue Innovation Fund. How do you see the prospect for institutionalizing and operationalizing such an idea? Dr. Kaberuka, please.
Thank you. I think everything has been said. I don't have much to add. I just have 3 points I would like to make. Point number one is about the history of TICAD. TICAD in 1993 was formed for two very specific reasons. Number one, there was a feeling that Africa was being marginalized from international discourse. And so between Japan and the World Bank and the United Nations, an initiative was born, which is TICAD. Remobilize attention, mobilize resources for the African continent. Now today, we're in another turning point, but it's no longer about mobilizing aid for Africa. It is about how do we shift from aid to trade and investment. And here Japan has got a long experience in Southeast Asia, in this region. If you go to places like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, all over the place, you find the Japanese stamp. But the Japanese stamp is not about aid, assistance, it's about trade and investment. So that is always the first point. And that's why we're here to talk about, not about aid from Japan, it's about trade and investment with Japan. And that means you have to have new instruments of financial intermediation, whether they're state banks or private. There's the second reason TICAD was formed, which we have not discussed, because that's not within our mandate. It was about UN reform. It was a very key point of TICAD, UN reform. And here I must say that progress has been much slower on UN reform. But even though it has been slower, we cannot give up on international cooperation on the global public goods. And one of the global public goods is precisely what we're discussing, the blue economy. No country can handle it on their own. Within our territories, yes, but there's a part of the blue economy which is a global public good. And so the emphasis on the blue economy here is not simply about national economic benefits. It's about the global public good, which is our oceans and our ocean economies. Now, TICAD has been a success in a number of ways. And one of them was the impact on the global institutions dealing with disease burden. I think without TICAD, it maybe would have been difficult to have things like the Global Fund, Global Alliance on Vaccination, and stuff like that. But now we have moved to a point where those things have to be funded by ourselves. So the fight against HIV/AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis vaccination has been generously funded through international cooperation. But now we have to fund them ourselves. So which means, again, building the economies capable of expanding the fiscal space, funding ways of working with the private sector, say on vaccine manufacturing, stuff like that. And I listened yesterday to, I think, your foreign minister, I think was giving an interview in Paris or somewhere, and he said the ticket in Yokohama, they would like to focus precisely on the economy, but especially on how to make use of the digital and artificial intelligence to support the kind of things we're discussing. And I really like that, because it means with the new technologies available, as he was saying, you can look up his interview, that with artificial intelligence, we're able to be much more effective, whether it is food security, the blue economy, education, health. And I think that is very important. So I'm hoping that at this TICAD, we look at how to use the new instruments available in the digital space, in the financial space, to advance the TICAD process beyond simply aid to how do we simulate trade and investment for these new sectors. Now, as for creating a new fund, in this document, we mentioned this, but we're also prudent, we're also lucid to know that in the world today there are too many funds, but unfunded funds. I can give you the example of the pandemic fund. After COVID, there was this call to create a new fund for pandemics. Target, I think, was $4 billion. It is located in the World Bank. It is now hardly $1 billion. Hardly $1 billion. So we are cautioning that we're not talking about creating another fund which will be unfunded, like the Green Climate Fund, the Pandemic Fund. It's about a seed instrument to attract additional funding from the private markets. Now I want to add here, because I say everything has been said by our leaders here, that we don't mention this document something but which we discussed in detail, which is about the potential of demography. Let me put it this way. If you look at the state of the global economy today, if you look at the countries we call the global north means the US, Europe, Japan, okay. The amount of savings available are increasing every year. And the return to those savings is diminishing as well. Here in Japan, you know very well, you have tried to promote consumption and investment by even getting to negative interest rates. A colleague of mine, Mr. Kuroda, who used to be head of the Asian Development Bank, when I was head of the African Development Bank, became governor of Bank of Japan. And him and I are discussing how, at the time you brought down interest rates, I think, to -2. Still, it did not increase consumption and investment because of the demographic realities. Now, in our continent, it's the opposite problem. Because our demographies are expanding, there are more needs for investment, social investments, but our savings are negative. Our savings are negative. And so, is there a way in which we can combine these two opportunities? There is opportunities in the north, country like Japan, where the savings are increasing, but the return on those savings outside the narrow domain of technology are very low. And yet you'll have to pay for your pensions in the future. Now, in our countries, it's the opposite problem. We have expanding demographies, we have needs in health, education, the blue economy and all this, and we need to attract that investment. So if we can find a way to create financial vehicles which make it possible for countries like Japan, with a lot of savings, surplus savings, which increase every year because of demographics, but with low returns. With our countries where demographies are increasing, there are more needs, and the returns on investment can be very, very high. I tell you, there's no return on investment which is higher than investing in places like our continent. And so my answer to you, sir, is that what we are saying roughly here is that we need to create new financial vehicles, not the old funds, which simply transfers aid from taxpayer in Japan to our people. No. We are looking at pools of capital available in places like Japan, which are getting very low returns, to where they can get very high returns because of demography. And this is what Japan has done in Southeast Asia. I was mentioning to my colleagues yesterday that Vietnam, where I saw a lot of Japanese investments, Korean investments, and even some of your neighbors, has expanded GDP from $14 billion to $500 billion in one generation, and thanks to investments from Japan, Korea, and places like that. So whether it is blue economy, food security, infrastructure, this is what we are saying. So it's not ticket of 1993, come and help us. No. I think that bridge has been crossed. It's about what we do so you can get better returns on your savings, on your investments, and how we can get more resources to invest in social capital, food security, blue economy, so that globally we create a better world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We catalyze investment and mobilize returns. Thank you, Dr. Kaberuka, for pointing out. We went over the agreed time. My apology, but I cannot close this without asking Excellency Obasanjo to give us one final word and a message to the audience here. Maybe just, it's not a few seconds, maybe half a minute to have your final key message.
Well, thank you very much. And as I said, well, we cannot thank Nippon Foundation, Sasakawa Peace Foundation, Sasakawa Africa Association enough for this wonderful opportunity. And if I can put it succinctly, there is hope. That is what I would say our discussion over the last 4 days. There's hope in partnership. There's hope in working together. There's hope in collectivity, and there's hope in not seeing ourselves in silos. And it is that hope, I believe, that we have to hang on to and make to work for ourselves, for ourselves and Japan, and for the international community. We shouldn't look at the dark side. We should look at the bright side. And normally, before the daybreak, there's darkness. Maybe the darkness we see now is before daybreak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency Obasanjo. So may I ask Excellencies to remain seated? There will be a closing remarks, but let me ask you to give one more big round of applause to the panelists and the leaders here. Thank you very much.
ご登壇いただいた皆様ありがとうございました。それでは閉会に際しまして、当財団常務理事の 酒井英二よりご挨拶申し上げます。酒井さん、よろしくお願いします。
はい、今ご紹介いただきました笹川平和財団の酒井でございます。本日のシンポジウムのクロージングにあたって一言ご挨拶申し上げます。皆様、本日は本当にお忙しい中、本シンポジウムにご参加いただきまして誠にありがとうございました。本日の議論を通じて、我が国とアフリカが共に取り組むべき課題、ブルーエコノミーや食料安全保障といった分野における連携協力の可能性、こういったものについてより理解を深めることができたのではないかと思っております。特に昨日まで箱根で開催されました賢人会議において続いてですね、本日のシンポジウムにご登壇いただきました賢人の皆様からの貴重なご示唆、こちらをですね、今後の政策形成や国際連携において、そしてまた来月のティカット9における議論に、大きな指針としてですね、なるものではないかと確信をしております。ご登壇いただきました皆様方には改めてお礼を申し上げたいと思います。またこの会場並びにオンラインでご参加いただきました皆様にも、改めて御礼を申し上げたいと思います。皆様のこの熱意とですね、関心がこの対話の意義というものを一層高めてくださいましたことを本当にありがたく思っております。また我々笹川平和財団におきましても、海洋政策研究所を中心に今後もアフリカ諸国との連携協力を拡大、そして進化させていく所存でございます。本日の成果がその未来への一歩となることを心から願っております。改めまして、本日ご参加いただきました皆様、そして遠路はるばるアフリカからいらっしゃいました賢人の皆様方に心から感謝を申し上げ、このシンポジウムを閉会したいと思います。本日は本当にありがとうございました。
以上をもちまして特別国際シンポジウムアフリカと日本の連携の進化に向けて食料安全保障と持続可能なブルーエコノミーの推進を目指してを終了いたします。なお、我々の作成しました政策提言および賢人会議の成果としてできました声明文に関しましては我々のウェブサイトより公開されております。ぜひご参照いただければと思います。それでは本日もご参加いただき誠にありがとうございました。